Hey folks, my name is Joe, and you probably clicked on this video because you are considering putting in an EPAS Performance Power Assist steering kit, and you may have, or you may be considering also putting in a Malwood underdash clutch, hydraulic clutch. So in my case, I had the clutch, put it in, love it, but I wanted to increase the drivability of the car, so I elected to go with the electronic power steering as opposed to the typical hydraulic power steering. So just a quick overview. This is the black powder coated I Did It column that you can order with the kit. I went ahead and did that. This is the motor assembly. And then of course it comes with some U-joints and the correct shaft extensions, as well as the firewall plate that you'll need for installation. It also has the controller that's in the car, and I'll show you that in a minute. It is not black from the manufacturer. I already primed and painted this because with the Malwood clutch, the motor sits rotated down a little bit more than normal. So some of this is a little more visible than in your typical installation. And I'll get into all that in a moment. So during this installation, there were several modifications that I either elected to do just out of simplicity or serviceability, and some that I had to do out of necessity. Okay, so for instance, this is the firewall plate. This is the plate that sits on the firewall. Again, I've already painted this. So one thing I did is this is the 3 holes that the existing that hold the plate to the firewall. These 3 holes here, 1, 2, 3, and then these were the existing nasty old screws that were holding the old plate in place. And the instructions say to go ahead and just use those screws to reattach this plate. Well, what I elected to do was utilize some nut inserts. And you could pick one of these up on eBay real cheap. This is a 1/4 nut cert. So I went ahead and drilled out the firewall holes and put a nut cert in so that when I go to attach the plate, I'll have a nice solid attachment location there, as well as a beefier, 1/4 bolt as opposed to, these little wood screws or sheet metal screws. The other thing I did too is when you're assembling this in place, you've got this bearing that sits in the middle, and then you got these 2 plates that squeeze together and lock the bearing in place once you've got everything set up. Well, in the kit, what they give you are these bolts, and then they give you nuts on the back. Problem is, unless you got another hand or another set of hands on the other side of the firewall, it's very difficult to access as well as get these bolts tightened. So again, I did the same thing here. You can't really tell because these are already painted, but I put 3 nut inserts on this as well, and this will allow you to cinch this bearing down, from under the dash instead of having to crawl into the engine bay and try to hold the nut on the back of the firewall plate. Okay, so that was one improvement that I made to the kit. Now, in a 66 and a 65, this motor usually sits up at about 10 or 11 o'clock. The higher you get it, the better it looks, and the less you see under the dash. But because of the Malwood clutch, there's some interference that you got to account for. And so it only sits at about 9:30, maybe 10. And there's not a whole lot you can do other than, and I don't know if you can really see this. Hopefully you can. What I ended up having to do is clearance this ear, and this is what the motor mounts to. And I called the guys over at Malwood, and they said it was cool if they did that. But basically, I just had to clearance that, and to get it up enough to where it was aesthetically, pleasing, because it was hanging down too low if you didn't. And it physically comes in contact with the pedal itself, not the top assembly, the actual arm of the pedal that drops down. So I was able to spend a lot of time coming in here and clearancing this out in order to get it up far enough in so that it looks good. And still, as the pedal comes back, it's very, very close, but it does not touch. So that's a win there. And then the other improvement that I had, and this is 65, 66. One other thing, as a result of having to clock this motor down a little bit, you lose the location of the emergency brake. And so I ended up actually relocating my emergency brake very far over to the left, and I'll show you all how I did that. The other thing that I wasn't a big fan of is, so here's your collar that holds the column in place, and you reuse the stock collar. You do have to, clearance off that little tab right there. But this is basically all that's holding the column in place. And so the problem with that, and I had it all cinched down, is I was getting some up and down movement because, that's just a pivot point. And you got a joint right here. So there's nothing hard holding the back of this. And you essentially just have like a pivot point in the middle. And I mean, it was probably would have been okay, but it's more movement than I liked. And so what I did is fabricated this little bracket here, and this actually, I just used a self tapper up into the pedal assembly, and then this attaches down here on this bolt hole right here, and this really, really stiffens everything up so that the column doesn't go up and down. If you are pulling on the wheel at all, or you go to do a tilt function with your wheel, that whole column wants to kind of go up and down. And this isn't heavy, but it's not light, and probably weighs 18 pounds, 20 pounds maybe. So I felt it necessary to add this as well. Let's see. If you buy the kit, it comes with the stock Mustang, connector for the turn signal wiring, and it comes already with all the pins already soldered on the wires and everything. I had done an American Auto Wire classic upgrade kit, and it now uses GM wiring. So if you're using GM wiring in your install, just beware that you're going to have to buy one of these little $30 kits and make a new connector, because unless you want to, cut off the old connector and use the Mustang one. So anyway, I'm really excited to do the final install on this. I've got everything pretty much fabbed up. I got all the wire ran, and I'll show you what I did in the car to get to where I am right now. Hold tight. Okay guys, we are out at the 66, and just a couple quick notes. I wanted to mention that this is not an installation video. I'm not going to take you through the whole installation. There's several videos out there, and in fact, I'll put a link in the description of the one that I like the most, and give that guy credit where credit is due. He did a great video on putting this system in. This video is specifically for Malwood, EPAS, and some of the challenges on 65, 66. But anyway, first tip, you got to take out your seat. No doubt about it. Don't even question it. You got to take it out. Second tip, this little bracket right here that holds the column in, it's the upper side of the column retainer, this little collar. What I did is I put a little bit of E6000 on the back of that and put it up in place, because this thing just wants to fall off the entire time. And when you're trying to wrestle this thing up into the dash, it can be very difficult and challenging with this thing wanting to fall off constantly. So do yourself a favor and just, double-sided tape or something on the back of that so that it stays in place. Okay, and then as you can see, I got the Malwood clutch assembly here. And if you can see somewhere the scratching is right here on the pedal arm, that's where the contact is happening with the EPAS kit. Well, it's not happening anymore since I clearanced it, but that's where it was originally happening. Okay, so for those of you that haven't seen one of these Malwoods, It basically mounts to the existing pedal assembly. It's a super simple installation up under the dash here, very easy to do. And then it gets a little challenging once you have to run your reservoir out to the engine bay, and then run your hydraulic cable down to, I'm using a throwout bearing. So love this kit, it's great. But first and foremost, you can see where my e-brake is in relation to where it normally sits. It normally sits about right here, and you can see the two holes that it sits on. I had to move it a good 5-6 inches over to the left in order for it to clear everything and stay functional. And basically what I did is just modified the bracket here, cut off, I don't know, an inch of it, and then kind of cut some material off the top, shortened it. Now it attaches from the bottom. You don't have to get it up over the dash in order to attach it. And then I just put new holes in the firewall in the back there. And the other good thing about doing that was you can now access and remove the e-brake from under the fender well as opposed to the engine bay. So that's these two bolts here. And then these two bolts were for a little custom bracket I had to make for the e-brake cable. And mentioning that, so the e-brake cable, you lose about 7-8 inches of cable when you move it over. And so I ended up having to make a whole new cable from this point all the way down to where the equalizer is, and or I should say where the bracket comes across, and you hook there. It's from the equalizer back, it's all stock, but I just used one of those Willwood e-brake kits that come with all the parts, various parts and everything, and I was able to fabricate a new cable that basically runs from here through the floorboard or footboard, I should say, and over to where the end of the ferrule is. The other thing, now I had deleted my vent already, and you can see up there, this is just a piece of ABS plastic that's sitting up there. And main reason is I've got AC in the car, and the vent actually used to sit right here, and now I've got the brake there. So until I figure out something different, I'm just gonna leave the vent here and just dump fresh air and conditioned air right at the footboard here until further notice, until I figure out something else. But it opened up a whole lot of space for me to install the EPAS controller. So super convenient place to install it, easy to access, access to the engine bay for the power wiring, and then access to all your under dash wiring for all the other stuff. This is the potentiometer that controls the amount of power steering that you're using. And so if you've read into that, you know that, turn it down on the freeway and turn it way up when you're in a parking lot. But yeah, so this is where we are at. We are about ready to do the final install of the column assembly and get everything put in for the last time. I've had it in and out 7 or 8 times trying to get everything fit and ready, but I'm at the point now where we're gonna go ahead and stab this thing for the last time. So as soon as I get it in, I'll get back under here with the camera and show you what it looks like, and we'll go from there. Stay tuned. Okay, folks, I just wanted to talk briefly about the steering box options for this project, for this EPAS project. This is the 19-to-1 5-turn box that is stock in the 65-66, and it's got the 3/4 input, and it's got the 1-inch output for your pitman arm. All right, this is an exact replacement box, except it is 16-to-1 and 4-turn. Okay, so I elected to do that because I don't want to turn it over 2 times to go around a corner. So this is a good upgrade. Now, a couple of things about this upgrade. First off, Flaming River offers a box, but it's like $800, and it's already all set up and machined. I think it's actually splined. It's got the correct 1-inch output, but it's like $800. I picked this up on Rock Auto. It's made by Laris, and I think all in it was like $275 shipped. It's got the correct 1-inch output. It's got the correct 3/4 input. And then I took it to my machinist and had him machine these flat parts on here, and it cost me like $75 to get that done. So all in, you know, I'm in a little over 300 for a new box, as opposed to getting like the Flaming River box that was like $800. So I think this is a good option. So eventually I'll come in and cut this, and then this shaft will slide onto here, and then that end will go to the back of the column assembly, and then this 1-inch DD rides in the bearing that sits on the firewall, and then you've got, you know, some collapsibility there as well. So I will tell you, so in my hunt, I determined that a 67, 68, 16-to-1 box will fit in a 65 to 66 Mustang. And it has a splined input, so that saves you the hassle of having to go have it machined. Herein lies the problem, though. In 67, 68, the pitman arm was 1 1/8 inch. So you would have to change your pitman arm if you elect to go to the 67, 68 box with the splined input. And it's certainly an option, but I figured for me, it was going to be a little bit easier to keep the same pitman arm and then just do a little bit of machining and cutting, as opposed to trying to make that work. All right. Just another note about this machining. In the instruction manual, they say to take 105 thousandths off each side here. It's actually a little bit less. So, I mean, if you take the 105 off, you're going to be okay. The problem is your U-joint might jiggle a little bit. It'll probably be all right once you do the set screws and everything. But I would actually take this into your machinist and have him measure and build off of this, as opposed to following the instructions exactly. So anyway, I'm about to get this in. Oh, one more thing I wanted to say about this box. So in the instructions, they say to cut this off and it'll make it easier to get out of the car. Absolutely 100% true. I would recommend doing it. Depending on what your plans are, you can obviously machine this shaft and reuse your 19-to-1 box if you want. But this one's going to go back to EPAS. They're going to rebuild it, and they're going to machine this shaft to correctly accept a 3/4 DD for the next guy. So I'm not wasting this gearbox by cutting that shaft. This is going to go to good use. Someone will be able to use it. And then you can also get this shaft if you decide you want to, you know, rebuild this to a stock Mustang box. This shaft is available. I know guys that have it. So anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm about to wrestle this thing into the car, take some measurements, make this cut, and then get it up into the car and get everything hooked up. And man, I really would like to be driving today, so we'll see. All right, guys, so I have got this column installed, and I gotta say, just standing outside the car, you know, your normal focal point isn't really that area, but I'm glad I painted it, because you can kind of see there is a little bit hanging down. Now, if you're in a standing position looking at it, you don't really see it. I mean, it doesn't catch your eye or anything. So I'm pretty happy with the way it looks, and you're just generally, and the car's jacked up. So really, when you're looking at it, you're up here. But I'm pretty happy with the way that came out. You can see where my emergency brake is now. I'm basically, I've got everything dialed in all the way up to the steering wheel. Everything's centered to the best of my knowledge here. We won't know until we actually drive it, but that's one thing I do stress. Try to keep everything centered, including the steering box, when you're reassembling everything. And this is what the underside looks like. And it's kind of tight in there. I mean, to get up in there and do some service is going to be a little bit of a knuckle buster. But I'm pretty happy with it. One thing I'll recommend you do is when you're putting in this plate, and I'm sorry, I've got everything already buttoned up here. When you're putting in the plate, that outer firewall plate, you got the 3 outer screws that attach it to the firewall. What I would recommend you do is screw those in last, because what happened here in my instance is, you know, these cars were made in the 60s. They weren't computerized. Everything was a little bit different than the next one, different factories. And so my plate was just a little bit off centered, and it was causing a little bit of a bind in the shaft. And I mean, I could crank it and get it on, but it just didn't feel right. So what I would recommend is the 3 bolts on the outer plate, not the bearing plate, but the outer plate. Put those in last. And what you want is a nice loose column all the way from this assembly down to the steering box before you tighten down that plate. And in my case, I ended up having to open up the holes a little bit to reach the nut certs that I had installed. So anyway, that's just to save you a lot of time and effort getting that in. But let's see, here's the finished product. Pretty happy with the install. You know, I really took my time and it came out super clean. So sorry, can't get much of a better picture up in there, but that's essentially what we look like in the end. So car's still up in the air. Haven't quite got it down on the ground yet. I still need to, I ended up having to have long tube headers, so I ended up having to jack the motor up a little bit in order to get the steering box in. So I still got to get that all put down. But and then I got a little bit of work to do with the e-brake still as it ties in. These are disc brakes in the rear, so there's been an adjustment, and I'm probably gonna have to shorten that rear cable a little bit. But anyway, that's where we're at, guys. So as soon as we get on the road, I'll take a couple more videos and we'll go from there. All right, guys, well, I'm testing out this EPAS system. Just sitting here, like literally one finger steering, man. It's nice. I have it about 50% right now, but I can turn it all the way up and, like, you know, basically one finger steer it, or all the way down, and it feels a little bit tighter. But driving has been real good. Put her up a little. I think I'm going to need to get an alignment because I did replace the crosslink bar. It was slightly bent, so I put a new one in. And the other thing too is one complaint with these EPAS systems is the return to center function. So when you go around a corner, let go of the wheel, and it comes back, it's not as good after you put this in. But they're saying if you put some caster into the alignment, like +4 caster, that it'll correct that and it'll actually do a return to center for you. So I can feel that for sure when I'm driving it. But I mean, just pulling in and out of my garage was like, oh, so much nicer, man. Like, I'm not muscling over, one hand steering. The tilt function's real nice. Like it about there. And pretty happy with it so far. Sitting in traffic as usual. This car just loves to go, man. 347 CI, Edelbrock ProFlow 4 intake, EFI. It pulls, man. Got T5 trannies, got some beefed up gears in it. But yeah, I think the alignment's gonna help a little bit because right now it's a little wandering, and I think that's just because I replaced that bent crosslink. But in terms of it holding, it seems to do pretty well. So far, no complaints with it. It's just nice to have power steering in this car for once, man. Just, going into a parking lot. So went to buy the store about an hour ago, and it was so nice to have this thing, being able to turn right into a spot, man. It was got a little bit of play in there. Again, I think it has something to do with that link because I've got all new joints and knuckles and everything. So anyway, yeah, so that's where we're at, man. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and please leave a comment if you have any questions, and I will let you know, get back to you as soon as I can. So one more time around this corner.